all about learning how to bootstrap your marketing. So that just means how to do it yourself, how to do it on a budget, and really basically where to start if you've been thinking about starting a business, or you have started and you just really don't know how to get it to market and how to get your first 100 customers. The idea, obviously, I guess my philosophy is that you should always bootstrap your marketing yourself first. You should always learn it, understand from the ground up how it all works, and how, I guess, what you should be looking for, so that when you do use freelancer or you do outsource it to anybody else, you know exactly how to measure. Because there are so many brilliant entrepreneurs out there who have no digital marketing skills. So they're awesome at building businesses, starting with great ideas, but they just don't know how to get it to market. And I've been involved in a few startups, some that have failed and some that have done really well. And I've learned a few things which I'm going to share over the course of the next half an hour. And going to use my sister as an example. She is a serial entrepreneur. She started heaps of businesses, and a lot of the time she has a design background and really good business background, but no marketing. And she's been burnt so many times by outsourcing or getting a contractor to work on it, and she just has no idea how to measure whether they're actually doing well or not, and then she doesn't know whether to turn the tap off or turn it up or not. So I'm going to make sure you leave today knowing exactly where to start. So, a little bit about me and my background. So I started in account management for the Defence Force, so in their advertising, and it was all about trying to get people to recruit into the Defence Force. And obviously that's worlds apart from the startup life, because you had huge budgets, there were so many people, obviously, that things had to touch, and things just moved so slowly. Then from an internship that I did in uni, someone pulled me into the startup world, and I joined a travel app. I was part of the founding team, and this was where everything changed for me. I really found myself, and I really found just how powerful digital marketing is, and also how much it sucks to fail. So this was a business that it failed in what it wanted to do. It's now pivoting, but we learnt the hard way so many lessons, which I'll go into in more detail in a second. And then home time. So I used to sit next to these guys. They started as just Airbnb housekeepers. So I used to go in and clean all different properties. And I used to sit next to them in fish burners, and I used to just give them ad hoc advice on their marketing. And then eventually they pulled me over into their team, and then we became home time. And that's now we do full service property management. This has been a really successful startup to be part of. We've been growing 20% month on month for the past 6 months. And we're the first Airbnb property managers to actually partner with Airbnb in Australia. So that's huge. They now give us marketing grants, spend, support, so much. That's really helping us now to go international. And then on the side, what I've been doing is working with a few other different startups as well, and sort of teaching people how to do it. My passion really didn't lie in doing marketing for small businesses. I wanted to teach people how to do it themselves, because it made me so angry to see how extortionate all the prices were that agencies were charging, and they were delivering vanity metrics, and people couldn't really see see for themselves how far their spend was going, or if it was even working. So I started Bootstrap Marketing, which is an online course that basically teaches you from start to finish how to do everything yourself, what to look for, and I really practically share my screen, and I show you exactly how to set up your tracking, how to retarget, how to set up your AdWords effectively, and all that stuff. And clients that have been using that is a Dream and Do, Little Succers, which is doing really well. It's like a same-day delivery service, and Anu. So, what do I know for sure? So, what have these businesses taught me so far that have led me into knowing how to bootstrap my marketing? Well, you have to move fast, and you guys already know this in the startup world. Everyone always says that. Fail fast, right? Everyone's always saying that, but you need to be prepared to let go of your ego and let go of your hard work. In the Defence Force advertising team that I was in, like things just took so long to get going and to get out there. And the designers would really, particularly the designers, would hang on to things, and they didn't want to acknowledge that they had made a mistake or that they had tested the market wrong. And so then that just led to more failure at the end of the day. So make sure that you have no ego when it comes to your digital marketing. Be prepared to fail and be prepared to experiment. Leezair, so prove the market. So make sure you prove that there's a market there before you raise money, or if you're thinking about leaving your job, get to your first 100 customers first before you actually jump out and do it. Heaps of people give you those massive inspirational speeches and they're like, screw it, who cares, don't be scared, jump in the deep end, and really don't. Prove it first. Make sure you've got those first 100 customers and then jump ship. Home time has taught me that retention matters. If you focus all your resources on acquisition and not on retention, then your bottom line will never change despite your growth. This is a really funny screw up, really, that we sort of just realized in our second raise. We sort of had all these new contracts being signed all the time, and our marketing was going great. And then, when you really look down and into your revenue, you're like, the hell, it doesn't make sense. We haven't actually grown at all. We're getting all these new contracts, but no one was monitoring retention, and no one was really focusing on how important retention is. They say that it costs 6 to 7 times more to acquire a new customer than what it does to retain one. So from the get-go, make sure you're focusing on retention. And Little Succers taught me that you can start with a brand. If you are sitting in your job at the moment and you really want to leave and you haven't got to your 100 customers yet to leave your job, then you can start with the brand. So if you do nothing, do something. So Little Succers, this was an idea that had started. This is my sister's business, and she had known that she wanted to sort of disrupt that whole flower delivery industry for ages with succulents, because she knew there was a bit of a trend there. And she didn't quite know how to start it yet, and so she just built the Instagram, and then she got to about 20k followers before she even created the product and launched it, and then she had an audience to launch to. So if you do nothing, do something with your brand. So what I really know for sure is that digital marketing really, really matters. I'm just going to show you some results just so you know how fast things can turn around. So these are results from home time. So this is basically the email conversion rate on our site over the past 8 months. And you can see sort of it dips down, and what was happening is we thought we were sitting at a really good conversion rate, about 4.8%. Just so you know, 2.53% is about industry standard in e-commerce. And but really, these were heaps of unserviceable leads, which meant they weren't properties that were in areas that we actually serviced. And so then we started to experiment with our marketing, make sure we got really, really targeted. We dropped down for a bit. And then we relaunched a website in March, and now our conversion rate has been growing up again ever since. But what's really interesting is that long form conversion, which for us means phone number, dramatically increased when we tweaked our UX and things that were happening on our website. So it was all that happened was a matter of changing 3 steps on our website. So instead of saying asking for your email, asking for how long your property was going to be available for, then we would go in and ask when your property was available for, how many bedrooms, and then the 3rd step was that we were asking for your phone number and getting you to book a call. All I did was swap those 2 steps around, so email first because it's easier to remarket to, then phone number, then the 3rd step, and our conversion rate, as you can see, just went way up. And the reason there's a spike in May was that was when our partnership with Airbnb was announced. So that's awesome. That means that 4% now of all the traffic that comes to our site is leaving their phone number with us, and we know that we have about an 80% conversion rate on those phone numbers to becoming a customer if they're serviceable. And of course, bounce rate as well. So we could see with the better and better we got with our digital marketing, the lower the bounce rate got, which was awesome, which just meant that people were engaging more on our site and actually taking the steps that we wanted them to take. So that's huge. If you have a bounce rate that is more than about 55%, have a look at the type of messages you're saying in your ads and seeing if they really relate back to the experience that's happening on the site. because if you've got traffic that's bouncing, there's some kind of disconnect happening there. Either they're landing on the wrong page and you just haven't tested it yourself, or you're saying to them something about, I don't know, getting a deal or getting 10% off, and then they're landing on the page and they're not seeing where to say get that offer. So just have a look and get someone else, like a friend, to sort of go through that whole experience and see what's happening there. And this is just to show you what happens then with our leads when our conversion rate increases. We went from about 200 leads a month, and now we're getting closer and closer to that 450. So how can you bootstrap your marketing? Well, step 1 is understanding what your key metrics are or what they're going to be. So know your customer acquisition cost before you start. How many people in here think they know what their online CAC is? Okay, a little bit. How many people in here have actually started marketing for their business or their product? Okay, interesting. Okay, cool. So knowing your CAC, it's so important. It's not just about thinking what your CAC would be or should be. It's about knowing what it actually is. A lot of people think that their CAC is, they work out, oh, well, if I'm creating a t-shirt and it costs me this much to make the t-shirt, and then we pay ourselves this much and whatever, then I have $20 left to acquire a customer. Like, yeah, that's great if you can get them for that, but the reality is you're not going to. So obviously, it helps you with setting a price. That's another thing why CAC is important, working that out first before you go and set the price for your product, because you need to make sure that, you're not undercutting yourself. It also helps you know whether or not you can compete at this price, and knowing whether or not you'll even be able to use paid digital marketing to start with to acquire customers. So using my online course as an example, this is sort of what I do every time I'm about to sort of market a product, or I'm consulting for a startup or anything like that. What I do is, and I'm not sure if you guys can read it, but the detail's not important. So make sure, I mentioned before, starting off with 3%. If you haven't got heaps of traffic to your site yet, you don't quite know what your conversion rate is, use about 2.5 to 3%, because that's about the standard conversion rate. Then obviously know what your average order value is going to be from your customers, and then think about what search terms you want to appear for when people are searching. For me, it's online marketing course, online digital marketing courses, social media marketing, what is SEM, startup marketing, all that sort of stuff. You can figure out, then you've got the traffic next to it. I can figure that out all through Google AdWords tools. It's all free. And then they also give you what the bid is on that keyword. So for example, online marketing course, 880 people are searching for that term a month, and a click would cost me $28. Then if you're appearing in the top 2 results, then your click-through rate on those ads are going to be about 6.7%. So then you can work out, okay, 6.7% of 880 people who are searching for that ad, then that's going to get me about 58 people to my site. Knowing that my conversion rate, or yours to start with, is going to be around that 2.5–3%, then you know that for me, for this particular keyword, I'm probably going to get 1 lead a month from this keyword, and that 1 lead is going to cost me over $1,600, and that's because it's $28 a click. So then you can basically work that out for all, say you wanted to bid on 5 or 6 keywords, work out what that would cost you a month. That would get me 10 leads, and they're not even actual customers yet. Then that means that my CAC is going to be about $730, which I just can't compete with. Mine is $300. People don't know me yet. They don't know the value. I have to start low. I have to start accessible, especially because my target audience are startups. And so that's why people like General Assembly and like other universities and other online courses, they can charge thousands of dollars because they can afford that CAC and they can afford to compete online. Whereas I'm going to have to start differently, such as at events like this and starting in person and really helping people first to build that trust. So, know your traffic stats. So understand these all first and understand their importance before you outsource or you get a contractor to work or you hire for someone. So obviously knowing what the click-through rate is on your ads, understanding what the return on investment is, the acquisition costs as we just went through, knowing your average order value, cost per lead, bounce rate, and so on. So as I mentioned before, keep your bounce rate under 60%, and you can sort of assume around that 3% mark and always aim for greater. The average order value, always think of ways that you can increase that. So Amazon, for example, if you put something in your cart, it always will recommend other things that are similar. They're always trying to get you to add more to your cart to increase that average order value, because if the acquisition cost is about $700, what can I do to make sure that I can get people up to that $700 break-even mark as much as possible? Knowing where to look for your results. So this is pretty basic, but a lot of people just don't know it. Like, come from a design background or whatever, you don't really realize how accessible these results are. So particularly if you're using UTMs on your campaigns, which I'll touch on in a second for anyone who doesn't know what UTMs are. But in analytics, you can see those results there just simply by going into that acquisition, scrolling down to campaign, and it will show you all the campaigns, the sources, everything like that. And then if you've set your goals up correctly, it will say whether or not, like, that campaign might be driving 800 people to your site, converting 12, your bounce rate on that particular ad is 17%. And then you know within 24 hours whether your ad is successful or not. And what you should aim for as well is to going into even more detail. So I use HubSpot for all my clients and for home time and for myself. It's the best. It holds so much detail, and it means you can add these UTMs to particular users as well. So it's not just, so Google Analytics is great for sort of an overall look at things, but if you're using CRMs or even MailChimp, you can see it as well. You can sort of carry that UTM with a person the whole way, so you know exactly, I guess that person might end up spending, like, for example, home time, we can get about 10 grand a year from a customer, and we can see exactly which ads are getting us our best customers. Then we can upload them to Facebook, target similar people based on those people's exact emails. So start with analytics. It's a good overview for you, but there's no reason why you can't jump into a CRM straight away. HubSpot has a free version as well. So, step 2, know what channels to use. So heaps of people when they're starting out, they don't know whether to use Google or social media. Google is typically more expensive, so people tend to use social media. They also use social media because it's a little bit more user-friendly when you're setting it up. My first piece of advice is to never, ever, 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 ever boost a post. Never boost a post. Like, you will never be able to track those results from that. They just give you vanity metrics. And if you've boosted a post, chances are you haven't set up your pixel and your conversion tracking, which means that Facebook is basically just spraying your ad. It has no idea if the people who are clicking on it are actually doing what you want them to do. So when you set up your tracking and then you embed that in with your pixel and everything that's happening on your business manager account for Facebook, then you're basically telling Google what your goal, telling Facebook what your goal is, and then it knows, okay, cool, these people started achieving this goal from this ad that I know that this brand wanted them to do, so now I'm going to show this to more people who are quite similar. So that's why you should never boost, always use proper business manager. So Google or social media to start with. Back to my point. Well, I always choose Google. My rule is that you should be putting 80% of your marketing spend on Google and 20% on social media. So why? Well, yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but if you think about the purchase funnel, people are actually searching for you on Google. They're typing in things like online digital marketing course. They're typing in things like best Airbnb property manager. They're looking for you. They've already decided. They're looking for a solution, and then you can appear. Whereas social media, you're interrupting them. They don't want to see you. They didn't go in there to see your ad, and the chances of them actually converting, particularly if you're selling a product, are pretty low. If it's lead generation, it can be good, but really, they're going to see your ad on social media twice, think about you, then they're going to search for it. So it's good to have a little bit of your spend on Facebook if you can. And then you can get that traffic to your site. Maybe they look at it and then they bounce, and then at least you've dropped a cookie on them and you can retarget them in Google. But really, if you're just starting out and you don't have much spend, use Google for sure. Knowing what metrics matter on these channels. So AdWords, click-through rate. I put some benchmarks here for you. 30 to 50% is the average click-through rate. I guess what you should, be aiming for on Google. Again, you can see if you compare it to Facebook's click-through rate of 2%, no wonder digital marketers are choosing AdWords over Facebook. So quality score and your relevancy score are both the same thing, but Facebook and Google are just at war, so they're naming it two different things. But basically, both platforms are looking at the quality of your ad, how relevant it is to the search term someone was looking for. They also look at things such as your bounce rate. So what happens is, I guess the best way to think of it is that, say, Google is a business itself. It wants people to find what they're looking for as soon as they've landed on your site. So they want to make sure that they're delivering value and that people aren't going to get fed up with landing on crappy pages. So they look at things such as, your bounce rate. How quickly are people on average landing on your site and leaving? And they're going, okay, well, it's probably because the page isn't loading. Maybe it's not mobile responsive. Maybe the content has absolutely nothing to do. Maybe it's a porno when you're advertising for a paleo diet. Who knows? So they're basically going to make your ads more and more expensive to try and price you out the market. And the higher your quality score or your relevancy score on Facebook, the cheaper your ad gets, and then the more people they show it to, because they want people to see good ads, because they want people to have a good experience. So that's why you shouldn't ignore your relevancy score. It does matter, and it does affect your return on investment and your spend. And then obviously looking at your conversion goals. So making sure that you've set up your conversion goals properly in AdWords and on Facebook. So go to, if you haven't already, set up a business manager account on Facebook. So it's not just as simple as that insights page and then boosting a post. If you've been doing that, go to, I think it's business.manager.facebook.com or something like that. Make sure you set it up properly. Has anyone... Can you put your hand up if you have already set up your pixel for your pages? Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's so important. So what the pixel is it's basically just like a little bit of code that goes on your site, and it fires whenever people do anything on your page. And then you can basically then retarget, or you can set that as a goal, and it knows that the actions that people are taking on your site. So then that goes back to the fact that then the ad knows what kind of people to keep showing it to. So make sure you've got your pixel set up. If you haven't done that, then please stop advertising on Facebook, because it's costing you crap loads and you're not getting anything back for it. Okay, so step 2, do it yourself tracking. And do it right. So I really recommend not outsourcing this to anyone. It's really not as hard as it seems. This is something that I cover in my course. It's confusing to start with, but once you know where to start, it's really it's the best if you can do it yourself, because again, you're going to be able to measure the people who you are contracting to. So Google Tag Manager. So Google Tag Manager is basically a really, really useful tool that's free, and it allows you to add any kind of code or snippet to your site without needing a developer. So it's essentially, you would say, okay, if you've got onlinecourse.com, that's where people land. Then when they sign up on that page and they say they've registered their email, then that redirects them to a second page, which is onlinecourse.com/purchase course. On Google Tag Manager, you would set a trigger, and you would say, I want a cookie to fire here, because now I want to retarget these people in case they don't make it to my next funnel. I know that these people showed interest because they got to that second page. You can only get to that page if you completed the first step. And now through that, cookie that's fired on Google Tag Manager, I can now retarget them on AdWords. And Google Tag Manager is also where you set up your pixel. You can do your pixel in within Facebook itself, but I think it's better to manage it all within Google Tag Manager. Pixel I just covered. Hopefully it makes sense. It's just basically Facebook's version of a cookie, and it allows you to have that further tracking and just continuously retarget people, and it's super handy. Obviously setting up your Google Analytics correctly too. Don't be scared of it. It's really useful, especially if you just want to say, if you're outsourcing your marketing, if you just want to check on them every week to see how things are performing, going over to Google Analytics and making sure that your goals and events are all set up correctly and labeled in a way that makes sense. So the other thing, setting up goals, the best way to do it is splitting up your funnel as much as possible, having different, say, conversion points on as many different pages as possible. So you don't want, not only is it just bad practice to have like, say, six fields of a form on one page, that just puts people off signing up in the first place. But it's also bad because if they drop off, you haven't captured any of that, and you also don't really know who was interested and who wasn't. So what we do at Home Time is we break it up into about 4 key steps. So obviously the people who make it all the way to the end, they're extremely interested, but it means we can just continuously retarget them. And that helps with your analytic goals, because that's how you set it up. You would say, okay, I know that someone has left their email when they land on this URL. Then I know they've left their number when they've landed on this URL. Does that make sense? Okay, good. UTMs, okay. So UTMs are just basically unique parameters that you put on the end of a URL, and every campaign, every link, any kind of advertising you do, any kind of communication should have a UTM. So now whenever you click on an ad or you see an ad on Facebook, copy the URL and then paste it in like a message to yourself, and you'll see it's this huge funky URL, and basically it's a way of putting in there. So this is the campaign it's part of, this is the channel that this ad was on, this is like the age group I was targeting, and then all that information is what gets stored in your CRM or your analytics. And my friend, for example, spent a lot of money on a digital agency, and they kept sending her all these results and being like, yeah, we had this many impressions and we can see this many conversions came from it, all this sort of stuff. And she was like, awesome. And then I looked into it for her, and I was like, none of these ads have had UTMs on them. So you can't actually attribute any of your spend back to these campaigns because you can't see it, you're blind. You can only assume that, you spent more here and you spent more there, and overall you've had more conversions. But at the end of the day, you don't know which ad is actually performing and what to turn up. So don't put spend behind anything without UTMs. Always make sure they're being captured. I'm happy to share with you my UTM builder as well. We can talk after about how we do that, but I just do it all in a spreadsheet. The other thing is to make sure your UTMs, this is probably a bit over the top, but make them a little bit cryptic, because your competitors can really unpack what your strategy is as well from your UTMs. So, for example, Home Time, our competitor, say Made Comfy, might be doing a particular ad. We can see, okay, campaign, it says like, maybe co-branded Ray White. I'm like, okay, so they're working with Ray White. That's interesting. And then the UTM medium might be like women 20 to 35. And then we can sort of just start to unpack what their strategy is. So I use things such as like ACQ for acquisition, LAL when it's like lookalike campaigns and stuff like that. And this is an example of like how you should be drilling down into your marketing from your UTM. So, and this is something that I do every week. And basically you can see that I can see, okay, these are the campaigns we're running. This is the medium, the source. Now I can, there's always going to be a large proportion that are unassigned, say customers or leads. And that's because you're doing brand awareness, you're advertising. People are always going to call in. or they're going to see an ad and not convert at the time, and then come back later and do a direct search, particularly if you have a memorable URL. But you can see here that we can then start to split up. So based on, okay, this is how many leads we got, then this is how many serviceable leads we got, then this is how many phone number serviceable leads we got, warm leads, hot leads, and then we can start to work back what our CAC actually is, because then we can see what our cost per hot lead is, cost per customer is for each channel. And then it's particularly useful if you know you have like a longer sales cycle, and then it might take you a little bit of time to see which campaigns are working well. But that just goes to show just how useful every week you can use your UTMs to attribute to your spend and know what to do from there. The other thing I wanted to mention, which isn't in my slides, which is something you can start experimenting with, and it's not that expensive. If you are a type of business that gets a lot of calls in, and you're like, far out, I wish I knew how to track these calls, or I wish I knew where these callers were coming from. I have a unique number for every different channel I use. I don't have a unique number for every campaign like a UTM, but I have a number for AdWords, I have a number for Facebook, I have a number for print, and I have a number for referrals, and that's just some of them. And we use a platform called Aircall, and Aircall is basically like so that your company can have like a landline, but it's attached to, say, all your sales team's phones. And it basically rings, and whoever picks it up. If that sales person's busy, then this person can answer it. And then there's this whole back end where it stores all the reporting, and you can see how many people came from your AdWords number, how many people came from your Facebook number, and then as well you can track that back into your CRM as well if you connect the two, and then that call stays with that person and that UTM where they originally signed up. And yeah, you can get a bit psycho with all of this, but it's really good. Okay, so step 3, let go of what's not driving revenue. So if you have started your business and you think, oh, I need to get my social media up, like we're not present, that looks really bad, or I need to get my blog up. Like, your blog is really important for SEO, but really if it's not moving the needle and it's not getting those first 100 customers, then drop it. Get the domains. Make sure you own as many things on like Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, as you can. Put a couple of things up. Maybe it's even like something a bit funny, like, I don't know, don't come here, or I don't know, something that you can do that basically tells people that, yeah, you're not active there, but you're active elsewhere. And just leave them till you have time. Like, I'm the only one in marketing at home time. There's no one else, and we've been going now for about 3 years. And our content marketing is something that like we really neglected, but we're going to get to it, and it is going to be something that eventually we can hire somebody for, or a junior for, but it's not what's going to drive you revenue immediately. So don't get hung up on it, because they're huge time wasters. And sometimes you feel like a bit disheartened by it, because you're like, no one's going to read it, and no one's reading this newsletter or whatever. So just let it go. Step 4, which is a bit more of a tip, but earn their trust. So Neil Patel, like, he has this whole thing where he's like, yeah, freemium. It is really awesome if you can offer something for free first, earn their trust, or things like this. Like, I'm hopefully telling you guys about my knowledge, so then you're starting to know that maybe I know what I'm talking about, maybe I don't. But yeah, do free trials if you can. Different pay structures like Booking.com. Booking.com doesn't take your money until you've stayed there, so you automatically feel like it's okay to book with them, and you're actually going to get there and see a legitimate place before they take your money. So experiment with things like this, or anything that's really going to earn their trust. You can do that through affiliations as well. Like, we have now a pro co-host Airbnb badge on our site, and we've seen that affect our conversion rate. So just think of ways that you can do that too. Build real relationships. So get to know your customers, and don't be afraid of being vulnerable. Something that we really, really did so badly at Leezair was there was this whole need to look bigger than we are. Like, no, we don't want to look like a startup. Like, no, we've got to look big. We've got to look like we know what you're talking about. Got to look like we have a massive team. And it's like, actually, people love the underdog. And people are actually going to be so much more forgiving when you do stuff up or you send that stupid email. So don't be afraid of being vulnerable and tell people what you're working from and ask for real feedback from your first few customers. Make it your goal, as I've kept drilling into you tonight, to get to your first 100 customers. Don't think about anything else. Just get to your first 100 customers, then think about whether you want to raise money, then think about whether you want to leave your job, then think about whether you want to hire a team or outsource your marketing. Don't do it yet. Just get to your first 100 customers. Go to markets, go to workshops, depending on what your product is, but starting at markets is the best way because you can get immediate feedback from people if you're selling a product. Invest in lead gen. So even if you're not a service or you're not a B2B business, put your time and effort into lead generation, because when you're capturing that interest, that's the cheapest way for you to remarket. And email is so important still, like relevant targeted email that's not just like those blast newsletters. They still perform the absolute best. So if you've already paid, if I've already spent $28 on a click to get someone to my site, I'm going to do everything I can to get their email so that I can remarket to them later. And you can do that no matter what business you're providing. So don't worry just about getting them to perform a transaction on your site. Get an email. Okay, so how do I bootstrap my marketing again? Well, just to recap, understand what your metrics are or should be, work out your CAC first and then work backwards from there. Know what channels to use first. So I would use Google if that's even achievable for you once you've worked out what your CAC is. Set up your tracking yourself. Whichever way you choose to do it, just make sure you do it yourself, or at least you watch someone who's doing it, so then you know how to use it. Know where to look for these success measures, so get familiar with analytics, CRM, MailChimp, whatever you decide to use. Let go of what's not driving revenue, invest in lead gen, earn their trust, and get to know your customers. Then you can outsource it. Now you're ready and you understand it enough yourself to then monitor someone else's performance. So just a shameless plug now here for me is that if you do want a little video basically showing how you can work out your CAC step by step and also how to monitor your marketing, basically everything I've just talked about tonight, but actual process of me doing it and you watching, then go to this link, www.rosaclare.com/StartCon, and basically you'll get an email from me and it will help you to enroll in a free version of the course.